once again, on behalf of sectional committee, engineering sectional committee of chemical and process engineering, we warmly welcome Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha and engineer Sumudu, and also engineer Mr. Upadi when he joins. So this is the second discussion we are planning. We are planned in the sector of milk industry. So, we would, as a chemical and process engineers, we would like to discuss about processes and efficiency improvements and all that in milk industry. So that's why we have taken this discussion forum. So once again, I'm thanking Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha with a very short notice for joining with us. So this meeting was earlier scheduled with one engineer, Hasita. So he's today actually he is not available because of some health issues. So without him, we continuing this session. So I think Engineer Sumudu, we can start. So we can continue.
Okay. Thank you, Chanaka.
Okay.
I warmly welcome Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha, who happens to be the founding member of All Island Dairy Association, and also he's a entrepreneur who started local dairy industry related business in 2004 during the conflict was at its high, and even the tsunami and everything. So he's a graduate from University of Peradeniya. He has a mechanical engineering background, and going towards Mr. Upali Veerasinghe. Mr. Upali Veerasinghe also very much we could say expert in the food manufacturing and the total area. Especially he's an expert in quality assurance side, specifically to dairy and other food processing products. And he's also having a science background. He will be joining soon, as I have explained. Now, the thing is, today we arranged this session with a very short notice, and I really thankful for both of these gentlemen today to start a discussion which will be very useful for Sri Lankan chemical engineers in going toward this food manufacturing and specifically the dairy industry. So this whole thing will be done for the sharing experiences of these two great gentlemen, and do as a more as a conversation kind of a way. So everybody in the participants can ask questions. They are encouraged to ask questions, and that's how it would be here on. But Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha, could you explain a little bit about yourself? And once again, warmly welcome you for the IESL chemical engineering section.
Thank you very much, Sumudu, for introducing me and bringing me into the forum. And at the same time, you took me by surprise when you called me yesterday and told me that I have to participate in the meeting in less than 24 hours. And that wasn't an easy task. And no matter how good you are at, no matter what kind of expertise you have, it's a short notice indeed. And I couldn't say no to you. I would have said no to someone else, but when Sumudu calls me and asks, I couldn't say no to you. So I said, okay. I don't know how much value I could add to this, but I will share whatever experience I have in the dairy industry with you all. Well, my dairy experience actually begins rather surprisingly back in 1997, when I was selected as the country manager for a leading dairy engineering company in the world called APV. Sumudu must know the brand. They are actually still considered as a Rolls Royce of process engineering, or rather the food processing engineering. And I served that company for about 7.5 years. And then in 2004, due to various reasons, particularly because the company was changing hands and it was not very conducive for us to continue to work there. A lot of old hands were sacked, and new American management was coming in. So the atmosphere was not healthy. And something that I have been contemplating for some time was to start my own business. And I thought it was the best time because ABV was doing well. Of course, at the same time, the Sri Lankan country situation was also not conducive for business at that time. But I, with all the challenges, I thought if I could survive during that particular period, which was most tumultuous, I thought I could do well if the conflict ends. So it did happen actually, and then here I am today, a company that I started with all by myself. Today, we are a company with about, say, average people on any given day, including the temporary staff. At one time, when we were building the spray dryer for Nestle, I had about 150. That's all on temporary basis. During the between 2004, that's the time when I started the company. 2004 to today, I think I have served almost all the dairy companies in Sri Lanka. I'm proud to say that because we build complete dairies, including farms and dairies. So I personally feel dairy industry has a lot of potential, and there is a lot of potential for engineers, particularly for chemical and process engineers. I'm a mechanical engineer. I entered the industry almost accidentally, and but thanks to the training I was able to receive during different parts of the world, particularly in the countries where dairy was thriving. So here I am today with fair knowledge of dairy industry in Sri Lanka, and I'm willing to share everything that I have. I mean, it may not be very big, or it may not be a large amount of information and experience, but whatever I have, I can with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Rajapaksha, sharing about yourself. And I think audience may have questions, definitely, with your background and with your experience about the dairy industry, and especially your remarks, which is very valuable for the IEXL sectional committee. That chemical and process engineering graduates or engineers has to play a big role in the dairy industry. So when you explain that, why do you think, I mean, chemical and process engineering engineers has to play a bigger role? Do you see there's a, I mean, in the Sri Lankan context, do you see there's a lack of such engineering, chemical engineers involved in the...
Yes, Sumudu, actually it's quite surprising that majority of the places, big companies that I visit and who are my customers, like for example, Fonterra, Nestle, Milko, then Palwata, CIC Dairy, Rich Life, you name it. I haven't come across a single process engineer, unfortunately. And dairy is all about processing. It's liquid processing. You start from one particular point and then you end up another. So there are a whole lot of unit operations from one end to the other. But unfortunately, dairy industry, I don't know the reason why, but maybe it's lack of knowledge or lack of awareness, lack of understanding. But it's surprising and sad to see the people who really contribute to this are not in that industry. Dairy industry is basically run by dairy technologists and certain other people who have no engineering experience. If there are engineers, there are few mechanical engineers, but not really process engineers. I myself am mechanical. So it's very there's a big role that the process engineers can play, because they understand this the whole thing more than anybody else. It's easy for them to apply themselves to the industry, but unfortunately we don't see anybody coming in there. I think when somebody says process engineering, they must be thinking things like paper processing or petroleum or things like that. But no, dairy is process, and there is a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think that is really kind of eye opener, because I was working in Nestle, and I also agree with that comments, because we see engineers, electrical engineers, and even mechanical engineers, but it's maybe few chemical engineers. Even today, if taken, there is only one chemical engineer as far as my knowledge. Maybe I'm wrong. Then it goes to Milko, and in other areas, Sri Lankan chemical and process engineers. I don't. I also not aware of with my network. I'm not aware much about. Maybe there are few in the industry, but more than that, there are other engineers. Whereas chemical and process engineers should contribute more. Chanaka, do you have something to add up here?
Yes. So it was very surprising that Engineer Gami Rajapaksha explained that he has not come across with any of the chemical engineers in the industry. So that is a very good eye-opener, because this industry itself has a lot of unit operations, as Engineer Rajapaksha explained.
Yes.
So it's very sad situation, I think, that no engineer is interested in working with these type of industries. So as per my knowledge, there were some young engineers who started their career with the Kalvatta, Milko, and maybe in Nestle as well. But later on, I think they have diverted to some other industries or maybe migrated. So that has happened. So as per your experience, Engineer Rajapaksha, what is the reason that chemical engineers are not retaining in these industries? Is it their perks, or is it the workload? Is it something else that you think that they start hopping to other jobs? Yeah.
Chanaka, number one, I think, is if you look at the number of engineers graduating per year or per annum from any university, I think it's only Peradeniya and Moratua.
Yeah.
Compared to the other disciplines, chemical engineers are very few, right? So therefore, there is a dearth of chemical engineers in Sri Lanka. So if somebody applies for an engineering job, the chemical engineers are always outnumbered by mechanical engineers. So that could be one reason. The other reason is the prospects. You see, I mean, there is as they say, I mean, since we are talking about the dairy industry, there is a saying, always the pasture is always green on the other side. So, so people always look at look for the greener pastures, and think the life is better somewhere else, and they keep switching jobs. One thing I believe in is one should not leave a job within the first couple of years. They should stick to the job and see what the prospects are. Now, as you rightly said, I know a couple of chemical engineers who have started their career at Palwatta. They left and they are nowhere to be seen. They must have migrated, as you rightly said, because their opportunities are in other countries. There are better opportunities. Of course, those could be the reasons why we don't see chemical engineers very much in the dairy industry. But I must say, if you enter the dairy industry, gain experience, and go and become an entrepreneur in Sri Lanka, the potential is immense. You must try your hand at it. You should not fear. the one thing that pulls our people back is this fear psychosis. A lot of people don't want to take that step. They would like to remain in that comfort zone. You see, don't want to move out. You have a car, you have a job, your job is secure. That's it. I'm sharing an experience with you. Job. I left my car, and I had a young family. I was building my house. I had nothing in my hand, but I took the challenge. So I encourage people to try. I mean, when you are young, you can try. Even if you fail, you can go back to the industry. Now, at my age, I can't go back again. I'm close to 60. But the young people can always take that. I think people must be encouraged to do that. Gain some experience in the industry, then try your hand at it. We are only produce 40% of the local dairy requirement. So there is 60% more available.
Yeah, Mr.
So,
Gamal Rajapaksha, thank you mentioning about the entrepreneurship in the dairy industry, which is, as you mentioned, it's a growing industry. And also there's a big potential because only 40% is produced here in Sri Lanka. If I recall, we talked about this. This is an interesting topic. Why it is still 40%, whereas we should have be able to produce more. The question is why it is not happening. Is a one particularly interesting question. Could you share some thought about that? Why it is not happening? Is it possible or is it impossible?
I think it is possible. There are a number of reasons. I'm only sharing my thoughts, right? Please forgive me if I'm wrong. These are what I'm saying is according to my understanding. Now, number one is we have been relying on the powdered milk over the last 30 years or so. I remember back in my village when the village milkman would bring 2 bottles of milk in the morning. He'd give it to my mother. She gives the washed 2 bottles that she took the previous day. And we used to drink liquid milk those days. Gradually, with the advent of powder, that liquid milk drinking habit faded away. It died a natural death because powder was convenient, and we didn't have refrigerators in our rural villages. So our mothers took to milk powder, and then the powder industry grew, and these powder industry, mind you, powders that were brought into Sri Lanka was all produced elsewhere. So our dairy industry did not have an incentive for them to try out more production because the powder was coming cheap and it was easy to keep. So the dairy farmers moved away from producing milk. This is one reason. The second reason is even today, dairy farming is not very profitable because the yield of a cow is very poor. I mean, per cow, average yield in Sri Lanka, you'll be surprised to learn, is about 2.5 liters per cow at an average. Whereas in the developed countries, it's averaging between 40 to 45 liters per day. Right? Can you imagine how far we have to go? And the other thing is, the dairy farmers don't get enough incentives by the government to sustain their industry. And last but not least, we must have big, large-scale, commercially viable dairy farms. Now, for example, I know how profitably Ambevela and New Zealand milk farm is run. These two farms, when they belonged to NLDB, were running at huge losses. They had to sell their cows to pay the farmers. But eventually, they could not maintain the two farms. They had to sell. Of course, there was some controversy about it. They had to sell it to Mr. Harry Jawar, who was, as you know, one of the greatest entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka. Within about a year, he turned it around and made a profit-making two farms. So similarly, in order to maintain quality and increase the yield, we should have commercially viable bigger farms. If we address all these issues, I think this bridging this balance 60% of produce in Sri Lanka will not be a big issue. We must have visionaries to run, make policies for this. We should not address, it in long term, and you should have short term, medium term, and long term agendas. Then the dairy industry can be developed in Sri Lanka. It's not a big thing.
Yeah. As you correct. Thank you once again. And Shanaka, do you have any more things to add? And how about the audience? Do you have any?
Yes, I would like to announce to audience, so you can interrupt and ask any question because this is a discussion. This is not a normal presentation or anything. We are discussing and we want to have all live participation. So we encourage everyone to unmute and speak.
Mr. Chanaka?
Yes, Kadagada.
I am Kodagoda here.
Yes, Kadagada.
Yeah. I thought this was a lecture from Hasita on dairy, but I got to know that he is infected with COVID, right?
Yes. Last evening he informed. So
Yeah.
we converted this as the first discussion on this milk industry because of his unavailability. Yeah.
I don't have any big idea about Mr. Gamini.
Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha is an entrepreneur. He's a mechanical engineer. So we gave about his background earlier during the start. So I think later you can understand
how. That's fine. I feel that he has significant amount of knowledge on dairy industry.
Yes.
I want to clarify from Mr. Gamini that now with the deficiency of milk powder in the country, the liquid milk liquid milk is popular nowadays in all the supermarkets also. There are lots of significant lot of liquid dairy available for people, and they also buying that. But my question is, I feel that they are comparatively very expensive.
It is.
Yeah. Why is that very expensive? What is the reason behind to become that liquid dairy is expensive? Because I feel that the making milk powder is much more complicated than making liquid dairy milk.
Yes.
Yeah. Why that is very much significantly high price?
I believe number one is when you it's kind of supply and demand equation. You don't have sufficient amount of liquid milk to serve the demand in Sri Lanka. Production is still low, and the per liter cost of production per liter is still very high in Sri Lanka because as I said, we don't have commercially viable big farms. If you have big farms which are mechanized and with less number of laborers, it will become cheaper, and the milk will become more high quality. Now, what happens here is since there is a shortage of milk, everybody is fighting for whatever that is available. For example, if I am a milk producer, and if one of you has a milk factory, dairy factory, you will come to me and offer me 70 or 80 liters per liter of milk, 70 rupees per liter. Because there is a shortage, the second factory owner will approach me and say, look here, Mr. Rajapaksha, I will give you 90 rupees. And the third will come, look here, I'll give you 110 rupees. What happens is there is a price war for the same liter of milk. One is offering 70, one is offering 80. and another one is offering 100 or 110. So what happens is the price of fresh milk goes up. Eventually, when it reaches the supermarket, people like you and I go and buy at that high price. If there is sufficient production of fresh milk, then the end product price will start dropping. Now, this is the scenario currently in India.
Yeah.
India has more than what they require. So milk in India is about, I think, 1/3 of Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
I think
Mr.
this is the main reason. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Gamini, may I disturb you in two directions? See, I have never heard that the farmers getting a high price for milk, right? But
could be.
nowadays,
Could be
if
right.
you see,
Yes,
like
right.
if they pay even 150 for a liter of milk, I think the milk in those the Tetra packs are not concentrated milk, right? They are just milk.
No. They're milk. They're just milk as it is.
Just as it is. But nowadays, the 1 liter is around 300 or 350.
Yes,
I can't believe that the processing will incur like 150 or something as a cost. And again, second question is the Highland milk powder they made from the milk collected from farmers also, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Then at that time they produce milk powder at a lower cost than the imported milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the with the same way, like they could have produced like the Sri Lankan liquid dairy producers can produce a liquid dairy at a lower price by collecting from the farmers too, because they have produced milk powders also at a lower cost than imported. Say the dairy industry making a super profit, as I feel, not the farmers, but the industrial
actually,
people.
Yeah, you are correct, Mr. Kodagar, to some extent, in saying that the farmers don't get that price. Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. The poor farmer never get a benefit out. That is because there are middlemen who collect milk and sell at the absorbent cost to the producers. The second thing is these 350 rupees per liter or whatever that is available in the supermarket are all in UHT packs. UHT itself is very expensive process. Sumudu will agree with me. UHT processing plant and the filling machine is extremely expensive. So they are trying to, when they make that investment, they try to recover it within about 2.5 years, right? That is one of the reasons. And the other thing is, because there is a price war in the market, they try to benefit from that. So they keep jacking up the prices. And the other thing is, the packaging material cost. That is also very expensive nowadays. So all these things contribute to that. And certain farms now, I know for a fact, Ridyagama farm and the Vatawala farm are selling their milk at about 115, 120 rupees per liter. So when it is transported to processing area, another cost added. Definitely, after processing maybe about 200, 210 rupees per liter or something similar. So others are there other overheads and the profit. So they must be making enormous profit, no doubt about that. So if we have more producers, then there will be competition.
Yeah, as we discussed that the packaging cost is very high. Don't you believe that now they are very fast moving, and why can't we go with like reusable glass bottles or something?
Correct. Then again, the issue is a lot of people are averse to glass bottles. Glass bottles are still used by Milko to sell their sterilized milk.
Yes.
But there are companies in the world who use both glass bottles as well as HDP bottles to package UHT milk. I have approached personally a company called SIG Combi Block, who are also into bottles now. What they say is the volumes in Sri Lankan processing companies are still not big enough for them to sell their machines. They're looking at minimum 20,000 liters per hour of production in a factory for their equipment to come in. That is why these companies like Tetra Pak, who go at very low capacity milk processing and filling equipment, becoming popular in places like ours, because our factories, none of them are producing more than, I think, 5,000 liters per hour. So that is one of the reasons why we cannot. And I'm a person who is also against UHT. UHT, the only advantage UHT milk has is it is long life and it doesn't need refrigeration. But the moment you open it, you have to put it in the refrigerator.
Yes.
Since it is elevated, the UHT milk is elevated to about 138 to 142 degrees. A lot of nutrients are destroyed, right? And milk get caramelized. The ideal is for human consumption for us is the pasteurized milk, which of course has a shorter long life, shelf life, but it is more nutritious and tastier than UHT milk, and it is cheaper.
Yeah,
we must go towards that.
Yeah, Engineer Rajapaksha, I have one question. So I think to add to Engineer Kodagoda's question, so pasteurized milk, I think 1 liter is very low cost, the bottled one.
Yes,
if you compare to UHT.
Yes.
In the market.
Yes, it is. That is why I say I prefer if we are going in that direction. Only thing is pasteurized milk in Sri Lanka, anywhere in the world, has a very short shelf life, between maximum 7 days, not more than that. In Sri Lanka, I think we are giving only 5 days because of our quality of our fresh milk. But pasteurized milk is the cheapest and the best, if one can go for it.
Yeah. Regarding those Tetra Pak again, now say it is very huge nowadays, right? Where these packs are going now, like they are going to home and then going to garbage bins. And what will happen to Tetra Paks at the end?
Well, it's like this. I have also looked at a solution for this, but then again, it's a little expensive solution. There is a brand called Ecoline in the market now, which is recyclable packaging. It consists of 80% of calcium carbonate, and the rest are binding agents and the light barriers. This is recyclable. Only thing is, so they are only being sold in Europe and few other Asian countries like Singapore and Japan. They have not yet reached Sri Lankan market. I've been trying to sell this this concept to a few people, so that we can get ourselves away from this Tetra Pak that is not recyclable. But so far it has not been successful. But there is this particular brand, Ecoline, which is available as a recyclable one, and it's a very nice packaging. It's cheaper than Tetra Pak also.
Yeah, one more suggestion, Rajapaksha. So if you compare with Tetra Pak and glass bottle, so as we said, even if you open the package, then you can keep only for 5-6 days, even in the refrigerator. Even the Tetra Pak and the pasteurizer. So if you can seamlessly supply pasteurized milk in the bottle, so I think that will solve the problem.
Yeah. Actually, there is this Waterwala plantation who has started producing pasteurized milk. They are delivering that from door to door. It is very popular, and that milk is very good. Only thing is they cannot meet the demand. And the other thing with glass bottles, the problem with glass bottles is the reverse logistics. You have to bring them back. Yes. You have to wash them and rinse them for reuse, and there are breakages. this is one of the reasons why people don't want to go for plasma. But in the long run, I think that is one of the most sustainable solutions for our milk. One thing is pasteurized milk is good. Second thing is very environmentally friendly. There's no harm to the environment.
Sorry to interrupt once again. I think Chanaka, Mr. Upali has joined. I think I should introduce Mr. Upali and thank him for joining today. Yes, it was short notice as for the Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha and also Mr. Upali Veerasinghe. Mr. Upali, hello.
Sumudhu, I just joined on the way to go home, still in my mobile phone, right? I'm just listening to what is Damini saying, right? Let's go on like this.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, I think our conversation, sorry to be disturbed in the conversation. Mr. Gamini was saying about the this earlier
about just the disturbance. So if you can introduce Mr. Upali Veerasinghe to the audience, will be great.
Yeah, Mr. Upali, I met him, Mr. Upali, I met him in the Nestle. He was in the quality assurance as well as in the manufacturing. After that, I know he's a visiting lecturer to Wayamba University and also a great consultant in the dairy industry. Mr. Upali, if possible, could you on the way explain about yourself? It would be much appreciated.
Nestle, about 30-35 years in quality assurance as well as production. We started milk collection and all these things in Sri Lanka long back around 1980. So that's what I have some experience with the milk, because I always, when I was at Nestle, I was in always the milk side. Now I am retired. Now I am doing my own consultancy. That's how it's going on. I know Gamini very well. So what I heard from Gamini is very true. Let's go on like this. Then we see whatever addition I can do, I will do on that. While it is not work. Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mr. Upali.
One second, Engineer Sumudhu. I think Engineer Neil Vikramasinghe also available here now. He is our president of sectional committee. Engineer Neil, are you available?
Yes.
Yes, your thoughts on this? Yes.
Yes, Chanaka.
Yes, sir. Any thoughts?
You want
yes, any comments or anything? Because we are doing this. Yes.
Now, referring to this milk industry and milk production, in our culture, generally our people have the capacity and their capability and the inherent ability is there from very ancient times to breed and maintain the animals, cattle and all that. So our farmers generally have the capability to do this, but nowadays we need to support them to enhance this milk production. And that requires the introduction of new technology and our chemical involvement of our chemical engineers to promote this. I guess now the Minister of Industries has changed, and now it is Mr. S.V. Disanayake. We can try to meet him someday and talk about our program we had as per our the industrial revival program. we'll try to talk with him and make a move to do this also. What I was thinking was that, and our young engineers have to actually, as that Mr. Gamini Rajapaksa said, he seems to be a very experienced person, and younger generation has to start from small scale, start from small way and try to improve it. At the moment now, thinking in large scale will not be effected. That is, start from little and target, focus to the target. And at the moment, there is, as Mr. Rajapaksa said, there is ample chance, 60% efficiency in milk industry. In those days, I can remember in 77 era, there was a move to improve the domestic dairy industry and bring the country self-sufficient in milk food. But later on, with the liberal economy, many things came in and our people got away from that. And now we are experiencing the setbacks. So we have to again start the production oriented this and that. And this is one important thing. The country needs milk, rice, and so many other things. Energy sector is also another very compelling, important avenue. So chemical engineers are there to think in the broad sense and do something you can.
Okay.
So anybody involved in milk industry at the moment is actually, we have to persuade them and encourage them to do whatever possible. That's what
Thank you, Engineer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chanaka,
Yes, Engineer Kodawada.
coming back to dairy industry, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Gamini, may I have a question like this? Like, as I heard, the milk is not required for adults, right? Milk is required for kids. Is that true?
Well, there are different schools of thought, Mr. Kodagod, about it. Certain people, you take any subject under the sun, there is always be at least two or three different schools of thoughts. So there are people who are pointing out milk is not required, but there are others who say no, milk is required right throughout the life. So I'm not an expert on that. But what I feel is milk is part and parcel of our food. I mean, it's consumed by people from the day one you are born until the day you die, unless you have a lactose intolerance or something like that. Everybody, whether it is needed or not, is a different thing. Say, for example, I mean, let's take beer. Is beer needed? No, but majority of males consume beer, right? So there is a market.
Yeah, that's true, Mr. Gamini. My question is directed to some other direction. As I asked this question, now in the country we don't have enough milk to consume, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
We don't have. Why we are thinking that we should produce more and more milk and feed to the people? Because people living without milk nowadays, right?
I think, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Rajapaksa. I think the question our engineer Kodagod asked, I think the best person to answer that question is Mr. Upali. I think he will be joining again in a few short time, I think we will redirect that question once again to him to see his view on that one. And also
Mr.
regarding
Piyantha,
yeah.
Mr. Piyantha, this is that is true. That may be true with the requirement to human being. But
yeah,
my question is now that we have a deficiency and we are living with that. And earlier we produced only 30% of the country demand and we had 70% to go ahead. Now we don't have that, like we are living with that 30% most of the time at the moment, right?
Yes. We are living yeah, you are correct. If our people, I mean our Sri Lankan population are satisfied with that, this is totally okay. Because on the other hand, it's I think the total milk imports right now 2019 figures is closer to 50 billion Sri Lankan rupees. It's a massive amount. That 60% what Mr. Rajapaksha referring to is a 50 billion industry.
One more answer, Sumudhi, because this industry, as Engineer Rajapaksha said, there may be several viewpoints. So whatever the viewpoint, finally there will be a market. So if there is a market, then there should be a supply. So that is where actually we should focus rather than thinking which and what. Because if you see CPC tobacco, and we are investing hugely on tobacco. So tobacco is there. And even as Engineer Rajapaksha said, there are a lot of distilleries, there are engineers and chemical engineers, everybody works. So in that case, I don't think that is our question. That is up to doctors to resolve. So I think better we will focus on our scope rather than discussing more and more on these questions. I think it's clear for everyone.
Mr. Chanaga, sorry to disturb.
Yes.
Yeah, is this discussion to find jobs for chemical engineers in dairy industry? Is that?
No, not that. This is to understand dairy industry.
I thought this is a discussion about dairy, right? That's why I joined to the discussion. But I think we missed the correct person to discuss the industry motive. Actually, the Hasita was expected by me to discuss on this matter. Anyway, let's go ahead as you wish.
Fine. Okay, Engineer, thanks.
Yeah, I think once again, this question is a very good question. I think it should be answered, and that is why I thought the best person in it, because today the Hasita is not available to discuss about this one. So I think next best person is Mr. Upali. So once he joined, let's discuss again on this particular matter. It's totally okay with me. I think we have the curiosity, we have the questions. We should be able to discuss about that. And going back about this UHT, and also about the we particularly miss one part which I want to ask from Mr. Rajapaksha. Yes, there's a PET bottle, PET PET bottles, which used for the like small bottles. I have seen that this kind of bottle. Yeah, I think that is HTP. You are referring to that similar bottles, right, Mr. Rajapaksha?
It's HTP. It's not PET actually. It's not PET. It's HTP.
Correct. So
it's not PET.
Those, yeah.
It's for sterilized milk. For sterilized milk, PET will not withstand that temperature. Sterilized milk have to treat them at 120 degrees for 20 minutes, and PET bottles cannot handle that. So therefore, it's always HDPE.
Okay, that's a good thing, because otherwise these PET bottles are available in the market right now for right now, because they are just using for the filling purpose only, I think. Not for the milk, just for the So that was my question. And since you mentioned these machineries has to be large, if there are commercial farms in that order, which would be the minimum capacity for such plant to be operated with this HDP
You mean
bottles? Because
commercially viable?
Commercially viable.
To be commercially viable?
Yes, to be commercial.
What kind of products are you talking about?
This is I'm talking about sterilized milk because now two options we discuss. One is the glass, and the other end is the expensive end UHT. But if we can go in between, because glass also the reverse supply chain is there are problems, and also if we can use HDP, that can be recycled. Definitely, HDP is possible.
Sumudhu, I will not encourage any new investor who wants to start small scale to immediately go into sterilized, because sterilization itself is a fairly expensive process. You need retorts, and retorts are expensive. I would always recommend newcomers or the small scale industrialists to start off with pasteurized milk. Pasteurized milk are easy to make, easy to fill, and you can start off with about 500 liters per day. And if you manage it properly, you can still make profits and gradually grow into a bigger processing entity, and also diversify into various other products. Pasteurized milk and yogurt are the ones to start off if you are a newcomer into the industry, if you want to start small scale.
Yeah, that's very enlightening. I think going with the pasteurizing, going with the yogurt manufacturing, because I see a lot of small scale the entrepreneurs in the dairy industry starting with the yogurts, and then they may go to the next step. But still there are plenty of yogurt manufacturers, but we do not see this pasteurized milk in the, I mean, we see the bigger UHT ones, but we don't see much of maybe as you mentioned, whatever plantation and whatever dairy and like that. But we don't see like a small scale pasteurized milk in the market. That is there any technical issue behind that? Why we see yogurt from the various manufacturers?
No, I actually have no particular or definite answer for that. What I believe is pasteurized milk, unlike UHT milk, needs a cold chain. You produce it, you have to if you want to keep it longer, you have to keep it refrigerated. That is the best thing. You get pasteurized milk, of course, without refrigeration in supermarkets. But what happens is then the shelf life will be shortened. Generally, pasteurized milk will have to be refrigerated. So that is one constraint why small scale people do not produce pasteurized, because they don't have the cold chain. See, that may be the reason. I don't know whether there are any other limiting factors. It could be one of the reasons.
Tanaka, I think there's a particular investigation we could do from the ISL point of view there, because why the small scale industries are not building up, as Mr. Rajapaksha mentioned. Maybe it is the cold chain network. If we have the answers, that would be very great. And that also cold chain network, start up a cold chain network itself another business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. In the supply chain, if the supply chain is correctly, infrastructure has been developed in the country, then small scale people can start. If you see,
okay, so now I came back, right? If you have any, I heard my name is out somewhere. In case you need anything, you can raise that question. Hi.
Yeah. Mr. Upal, thank you for joining this time. And last time it was not very much clear about self-introduction about yourself. And the question came from Mr. Kodagoda. I think Mr. Kodagoda himself, after, if I'm wrong, Mr. Kodagoda, you can ask that question, because it is a very important question, I think. Why we drink milk? Is it really required? Milk is really required for human consumption, because in Sri Lanka, we import 60% of milk. that type of question, if I'm correct, Mr. Kodagore? That was the question, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Just to answer that question, because I don't have much data as of now, because I didn't prepare for this one. But generally speaking, the milk, in the history, milk is the food which human has invented to nourish the community, right? So that's why that dairy came to the first. So everybody developed a lot of products through the dairy inputs. So it's happened not only in Sri Lanka, it's happened everywhere in the world. That's why even Sri Lanka and India, we also have domestic products like curds and all these things. There are every community, every national have some kind of food items which made out of from milk. Milk is the first thing which is came out to nourish the humans. So then it became an industry. So when it comes to the industry, it goes on a different ways. Now in Sri Lanka, I think most of the imports now happening with the baby foods. So the baby foods also, when you do some baby food products, we need some base. So that's why that milk has been the easiest one. Then milk industry has been developed in the world. So like infant formulas and all these things, then milk came into the front line. So if you want to go away from milk, yes, it is possible, but it takes a lot of time. Some other products has to be developed to give the enough protein and vitamins and all these ingredients. I don't think still we have another thing to replace milk. I don't know whether I am answered that question. I heard that question when I travel by car. So if you have something more to know, then you can raise the question again. Can you hear me well?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pali.
Yeah. See, in case of the say, for example, and now standard milk, as I heard that Gamini's thing, I fully agree with Gamini, because in Sri Lanka point of view, we have to think about pasteurized milk more. Actually, the system we had in our childhood, I remember there was a milk board. We have a milk board distribution system. Every city or every town had a milk board, separate small shop which sells milk. It has that pasteurized milk. Pasteurized milk means actually shelf life is, I think, about 1 day. Everybody comes in the morning and collect the milk and the daily ration and use it. So later on, we introduced powdered milk. Then everybody has gone on the convenience. That time Sri Lanka also didn't have, most of the people didn't have fridges and all these things. Sri Lanka structure was not there. So then people, for the convenience, they moved to the milk powder. Then Sri Lanka, what I feel now, that now Sri Lanka became milk powder consuming country, rather than the liquid milk. Earlier it was a liquid milk country. Now it became a milk powder. So that's why that a lot of imports has happened. We didn't have enough milk powder producers in Sri Lanka. Only Milko and Nestle.
Can I interrupt? Can I interrupt you, Mr. Pali?
Yes.
As you rightly said, this trend of consuming liquid milk has changed because of the advent of powdered milk, and that was done none other than by the multinationals.
Yeah.
For their own advantage. I won't mention the name, but it's the multinational, because they wanted the market to dump their excess milk production. so that they can give a stable price to their farmers. So, you know, we are their dumping grounds. That's what basically we are.
Yes,
we must get away from that and bring back this liquid milk habit of liquid milk consumption. It's not difficult.
Yes.
It's a kind
Yes,
of
Gamini,
paradigm.
I think you're correct. Let me add a little bit. The first common milk powder which came to common man was Lux Spray. Probably you remember.
Yes.
Have you heard about that Lux Spray? Right? Lux Spray imported and filled in that Vattala. Right? Earlier it was I think government-owned institution. Right?
CWE.
Because CWE. Actually, there was a need for that because Sri Lankan community didn't have electricity. Most of the villages, most of the places, they didn't have fridges or something to keep the milk. The milk board, distribution system was centered to the main cities and where we have the facility on this thing. So then when the milk powder came, it went through very well to the small players also in every corner in the country. So people preferred it because the price point also, that's not much. You are very correct. That time, those days, there are a lot of development in other countries. There are huge dairies happen. Then their excess powder has to be sold out. It's a business thing. So then there are a lot of powder came to Sri Lanka. It's below than I think the cost of that pasteurized milk, because pasteurized milk, as you rightly mentioned, we have to have a cold chain facilities. So that is also supply chain also makes a lot of cost add cost to the product. So the convenience and so these things actually the Sri Lankan people start consuming milk powder. Then we become milk powder country. My childhood, it was we drank milk. It's a liquid milk. Now we have to go back to the liquid milk. So going back to the liquid milk, the biggest problem in the Sri Lanka is the thing is the supply chain. The supply chain means actually beyond the producer. That means actually from farmer to factory gate. Farmer to factory gate, Sri Lanka biggest problem is we have very small scale farmers. Maximum most of the farmers, about 80%, 90% of the farmers gives the milk about less than 30 liters, 40 liters per day. So collection, it takes a lot of time. So it means when it comes to the factories, like, when I worked at Nestle, when it comes to the factory, the huge microbiological load is there in the milk. Because once it milked from the cow, it has to be chilled within 2 hours, one and a half hours time. That's what the standards follows in other countries, which control the microbiological load, sometimes less than 50,000 CFU per ml in foreign countries like, USA, and there are standards for the USA. But Sri Lanka, when it comes to that level, it's a 2 million, 3 million CFU per ml. So then it's very difficult to, kill the bacteria. When the pasteurization also, it gives a lot of pressure to the manufacturers to bring the count down to the desired level. Am I telling correct, or is it, what is your experience?
Yes, I think what Mr. Upali mentioned is true. And since we were, if I go back, we were a country where we were a liquid milk country. Then we were, our milk producing system, especially at the farmer level, we are getting at a very small amount, and then market penetration toward the small rural village did not happen well. That is why then government has to get the popular milk product Lux Spray through Ceylon Milk Foods. That is once again a government-owned instituted by that time, and they introduced the powdered milk. Then what happened when the open economy come? It was like everyone going through, and the multinationals captured the market, and they marketed it very nicely, and it is easier to market at that time because of these microbiological loads and everything coming into the picture. It was easier then. Right now also, if right now, as in the beginning, Mr. Gamin Rajapaksa mentioned, average yield per cow in Sri Lanka is around 2.5 liters. And then Mr. Upali later mentioned that each and every farmer bring around 30 or 40 liters per person. Then all these things coming at the very remote areas and come to the factories, and the microbiological load goes huge, like 2 million, 3 million. And then all this come into the picture of the price, what we are getting today, the liquid milk. The initial question, why liquid milk is so expensive in Sri Lanka? One question, the one part was answered the earlier version because of the UHT, the packaging cost. Then the cost of pasteurization, cost of sterilization, these things. I think this going on this direction, and also we came into the picture, this cold chain network. We should go back to the liquid milk. If we are going back to the liquid milk, what sort of things we should do to ensure that? One, because as mentioned correctly, 80 to 90% of farmers are small scale farmers. And then how do we introduce, system as chemical engineers to these small farms to bring that gap, meet the gap of around 60% milk production. The total demand for the milk today, 60% is met by imported milk powder or such products. How we could, how we could get that 60% with this 80% of small scale farmers is a really trivial question. One side, if it is today, this is 2.5 liter, can we increase that into a 25? That means tenfold. Then, of course, if we can increase that into tenfold, what will happen? Do we have enough foods to give to these cows? Something like that. Those kind of questions come. Because because myself and Chanaka, I think Chanaka, you remember correctly, today morning we discussed about this.
Yes.
About the feeding systems.
Yes.
I think since Mr. Both gentlemen can answer about this one, maybe the feed mills. Is it complicated thing or is it a simple thing like a grass in the, I think most of the chemical engineers does not aware about the feed mills, concept of feed mills, and these systems, are they complex? Mr. Gamini Rajapaksa, can you elaborate about those things?
They are a little complex in the sense you just cannot expect good yield from an ordinary cow simply by feeding grass. One thing is, there are two things actually. One thing is our existing cattle has to be upgraded either by crossbreeding or something like that, or by importing better breeds from other countries who are acclimatized to the Sri Lankan climate conditions. This is one thing that we have to do. The second thing is they have to be fed with the right mixture of silage, vitamins and minerals and water, right? And then what happens today is the majority of our cows depend on free grazing. They are allowed to graze out in the fields in the morning, come back to their evening. in the process, they sweat a lot of water, evaporates from their bodies. Milk is nothing but water. 85%, 86% of milk is water. Please correct me, Mr. Pali, if I'm wrong. And if the water evaporates, the milk yield definitely will go down. So the cows have to be kept in their barns throughout the day, and then milked either in the morning or evening or twice a day. So these are the things, basic things that you need to do if you are to increase the milk production. I think Mr. Fayaz was raising his hand.
Yes, I ask very little questions regarding marketing and business. Now, when we are taking Anka milk powder, 400 grams in Sri Lankan prices, around 580 rupees. As like we are taking a Highland milk, that is also the same level, 550 also. Why we can't reduce our Sri Lankan milk product as like 400 rupees? If we reduce that one, our Sri Lankan can purchase our local product, and we can earn a lot of the foreign money, currencies also. Now time it is very easy to us. This is one of the questions. Second one is, when we are taking our Highland milk powder and Anka milk powder, Anka milk powder is high tasty, and most people prefer to drinking. Why can't we not improve our Sri Lankan product? Second question. Third question is, those times melamine problems also arise. Now it is switch off. What's the reasons now in behind? That's all.
Yeah, I think Mr. Rajapaksha can answer the first question, and the second and third question could be answered by Mr. Upali.
I think the first question is the price that Mr. Fayaz was asking, right?
Yes.
Why the reason why we cannot produce at a lower price? I think let us say the equation that he brought in, 500 rupees for certain amount of imported milk and 100 rupees for locally produced. I mean that kind of a difference, I don't think we can ever achieve. We cannot produce at that level. That's definitely not possible. The other reason is, as I was telling earlier, we have a shortage of milk now. Today, if you go to Ambevela factory is not run continuously. Sometimes they run every 2 days or so. If they run today, they will stop for 2 days and they will run it on the third day. The reason is that there is a lack of liquid milk, and the other thing is you have to have quality liquid milk to run a spray dryer. Quality milk is expensive. Spray drying is extremely energy intensive process. So when you start a spray dryer, the recommendation is for you to continue to run it for 5-6 days at a stretch and then stop for cleaning. Because every time when you start a spray dryer, the initial heating itself takes a fair amount of energy. And that energy, if you happen to stop it every now and then, each time you start, there is a lot of energy wasted in heating that whole stainless steel structure. But if you continue to run, that particular amount of energy can be saved because you are running it continuously. You don't have to reheat. This is the main reason why I say that it is energy intensive. When you have a lot of energy being put in, definitely the price goes up. And today, Sri Lanka, if you take the Asian region, I think we are one of the highest, the countries in terms of unit cost of electricity. So, and there is a lot of electricity being used in spray dryers, and there's a lot of steam. Steam means it's fossil fuel. So all these to the cost. I think we can produce a little lower, but then again, it's produced by Highland and it's a government factory. So there are a lot of wastages and things like that, which is not a subject that we should discuss in a forum like that. But all these things should add, and eventually it comes to almost the same price level. I don't have an exact price formula as such with me as to how they price it, but I believe these are the factors that contribute to that high price. Thank you.
Mr. Upale, about Fayaz's second and third question. The second one is why Anchor tastes better, whereas the Highland is not. There's a controversy of that one. Maybe we prefer the Highland. That may be the case. Is there that is the second question. And the third one is about the melamine. How it is, that question, is it still there or what happened? Such that
one small disturbance, Mudhu, in that first question about the quality and the taste. So I think Mr. Fayaz asked about only the taste. So if you take the quality also, is there any difference between these two brands, like not brands actually imported one and the local one? Is there any difficulty of maintaining the same quality or anything related to that also? If Mr. Upali can answer, it will be better.
Hello. Yes, Mr. Pali.
I think his mic is muted.
Yes. Mr.
Sorry.
Pali.
Now, okay. Right. So when it comes to the quality of the milk powder, there are several things: nutrition quality as well as perceived quality. Perceived quality means people what to feel and all these things. Sometimes some powder is flowability is good, some powder is not good in flowability. When we put into the water, some get some kind of lumps. Some powder will not get lumps. So all these things matters. That process technology. The process technology also matters. It's not the only thing, right? But that in general, let's say for example, now that milk also have the same kind of spray drying facility like Europe having. That's one thing. But then the other main problem is quality of the raw material. If we put the good quality raw material, good product comes out. Right? To my general experience during that my 35 years experience with Nestle, quality of the raw material matters a lot, because Sri Lanka, we don't have farming industry. The New Zealand and all this, they have farming industry. I remember that when I was in South Africa, that Nestle collects only the farmers which is having more than 12,000 liters. The one farmer produces about 12,000 liters, the minimum level farmers. Right. So, but Sri Lanka only 30 liters. So then that also, that milks, when the day the milk from the cow, when it comes to the factory, it takes about 1 or 2 days. The 1 day or 2 day old product. So chilled product is there. So when it comes to manufacturing, then we have to use a lot of heat treatments to bring down the bacterial load. That matters a lot of the solubility and taste differences, that also matters. But we can't say that some people may say Highland is better than Anchor. That's actually perception. That's how the people does it. But when it comes to generally problem in India and Sri Lanka, we don't have a huge dairy industry, so the raw materials are poor quality. Then we have to do a lot of heat treatments. Then it gives the final product that effect to the final product quality. It's not only on the milk powder, it's really matters to UST also, UST milk. So other than that, sometimes you feel different taste in our milk powders, because in a way it will be a good also, because we have very mixed breeds throughout. We get the milk to say, for example, in one factory like Milko or Nestle, we have to collect from throughout the country. Some milk come from Kandy, some milk come from Jaffna, some milk come from Anuradhapura. There are a lot of mixed herds. So that also matters. There is no consistency on the taste profiles and all these things. There is no consistency. But whereas New Zealand, this is 1 or 2 farms feed the factory. So that gives the consistency. So these are general matters in Sri Lanka. If we go for the big scale farmers, we have to have a farming industry. But farming industry, I don't think Sri Lanka it is possible. So that's why that Sri Lanka is most room for the small players, not for the big players. Nestle also not producing now. That's very, very small quantity. I don't know whether that's produced the milk powder, because they have capacity, but they don't have milk enough. They don't have milk at that cost, because the cost of milk, the landing cost of the milk of factory is huge. But the people, someone can argue that the farmer gets small money. Yes, correct. Farmer don't get good money, but it goes to the infrastructure in between. Like as Gamini said, that the cost of electricity very huge. All these chilling centers, all these collections, it costs a lot in Sri Lanka. But landing cost at the factory is huge, but farmer also not get the benefit. So that's why the big problem for the big industries in Sri Lanka. The small players, if you put small plant in different milk-rich areas and pasteurize and bottled milk bring into the cities like Milko did in the past. So that is the good model for Sri Lanka. So when it comes to the quality, I think I roughly touched that points. That one is that raw material quality matters, and the processing conditions are matters. And even for the Sri Lanka, as Gamini mentioned, that now Milko is running also 2 days, but 2 days running also they have to collect 3 to 4 days milk. So very old milk we are producing, the processing. So it gives the different taste. That happens not only Sri Lanka, it's happening in India also. That's I have worked about 6-7 years in India, the same scenario. But I have seen South Africa and other countries, but it's very fresh. You can drink that milk. So when I just started Nestle, when I just started at Polonnaruwa factory was fed by 3 farms. One is from Polonnaruwa, the Polonnaruwa farm. There are Kandakabo farm. There are 3 or 4 farms. That was the original plan. So this milk directly came to the factory. That was good enough to produce that farm. Very fresh milk, very tasty. The product was good. Now that farms are not functioning. Now even Polonnaruwa factory is fed by collection was a very huge network. So the quality is bad. So it's very difficult manufacturer to make a good quality milk. So main reason is raw material quality and the process, and these things are there. When it comes to the melamine, the melamine issue, I haven't seen any reports. Yes, there was a huge talks, but final reports I have seen that Parliament also it was discussed. I have seen all the reports, final reports. The final reports, we didn't see any melamine issue in our milk powders. That's what knowledge what I have. Melamine issue is raised in China as far as my knowledge, because melamine is a nitrogen is there, but people do adding to give the nitrogen content more. Then that means actually the protein. China they were paid on protein level also. So that's why that they are adding melamine into this one. That's what the knowledge, little knowledge what I have. But that became a huge issue in Sri Lanka. From my knowledge, Sri Lanka milk, we didn't have anything, but imported milk also, nobody able to prove it. I didn't see any report the positive. That's for my knowledge. I don't know whether somebody has seen that there were a lot of talks, positive, but finally samples were sent to Singapore labs to analyze it. Nothing came out. But Sri Lanka, we have huge adulterations. That's something worse than melamine, right? Because farmers do add, now farmers are adding water to get the quantity. Sometimes remember that the urea addition was very high. In some certain extent, now after doing a lot of education, now it's not there. But sugar addition also there earlier. The salt, sugar, urea, sometimes people add to get the solid, because Sri Lanka payments goes on solid and fat. I think urea now not there. I haven't seen, very few cases I found random samples in urea, but now urea is not anymore. But sugar and sugar, starch, salt being added to the milk. So that also matters to the quality. Because if you add water, if the SNF goes down, milk may get reject. So then they add some solid. Like easy thing is salt. If you add salt, then the solid level goes up. Then we can this and that. There is a huge struggle for this collection teams to address all these things in Sri Lanka. But we talk melamine, there was another one, DCD or something like that. So that is also happens in some other countries, but I don't have any true facts to say we had that issue. Sometimes I may be wrong, but I haven't seen so far. Is that enough from my end?
Yeah, Mr. Pal, I think you clarified most of all the questions. So I think we have one hand raised by Engineer Kodagoda. Engineer Kodagoda, are you there?
Mr. Chanaka.
Yeah, Engineer Kodagoda.
Yeah, I hope that I heard that Mr. Upali is in quality side, and I want to ask a question about child milk powder, right? In the past, I observed that one of the brand of child milk, that is Enfagrow, made by Maid Johnson, right? They are come in tins, and there are printed labels on the tin, like they're painted labels on the tin, and it when it comes to Sri Lanka, they post a label, like a paper label on top of that with some singular words. But I observed some huge difference in that, because there is a nutrient list in the print, right? In the original one, they have highlighted some type of nutrients as a key nutrients in the milk. When it comes to the outer label in Sri Lanka, it is different. They have highlighted different type of nutrients, right? That I have really practically observed in milk. Is that what is the reason for that? Is that a marketing tool, or is there a different nutrient deficiency in Sri Lankan kids or something? Or can I have a explanation on that?
Engineer Pali, Mr. Pali, I think you are still there. Yes.
I hear it, but I can't. I didn't see it the question was not very clear to me. That means actually in some countries, some nutrients, let's say for example vitamins, they highlight vitamins. Sri Lanka is not like that. Sri Lanka is different or something. There are labeling regulations. Is that what you're asking?
No, what he is asking, Mr. Pali, in Enfagrow, whatever he mentioned the brand. So in that he says there are two labels. One is printed in the tin by the original supplier, and there is another printed label, some paper label on top of that. But in these two messages, there are two different ingredients.
No, there
so
are.
To clarify why is that?
Mr. Chanaka, the total list is okay. They have printed the
total list is okay, but the percentages are different.
Lists are okay, but they have highlighted that the key ingredients in the milk differently. In the original label, it's different, and the outer label in Sri Lanka, it's totally different.
Only the highlighted ones are different.
Yeah, Chanaka, what I can't answer without having that this is seen, but there are Sri Lanka labeling regulations. So these labeling regulations has to be followed. That has to be put in Sri Lanka. So say for example, Sri Lanka, I think all these 5 nutrients. That means that key nutrients, like protein, fat, vitamin, energy, preservings. These has to be displayed. Some countries, some are different. The labeling regulations are different. That's why the label is different. But the quantities, percentages must be same. You may sometimes misunderstand. Some countries, they can you have to put in the label percentage, 100 gram this much. Say for example, USA they says you have to put the percentages per serving. That means how much, say for example, that 4 tablespoons has to be put into the 1 glass of milk, 1 serving. For that serving, how much should be there? Some countries have that regulation. So if that regulation, if that labels has been made for some other country, then it comes to Sri Lanka, we have to put it as per the percentage for 100 grams. I don't know whether I answered this one. This is actually labeling regulation which I faced. I also faced when I was in quality assurance.
Okay, Mr. Pali, in the label, the like amount of each and every nutrient, it's okay, but in both labels it's same. But in like if it is made in let's say it's made in Thailand, right? They have highlighted key nutrients in this milk, like there are list around 20-25, and they have highlighted 5 nutrients as the key nutrients. But in Sri Lankan label, the 5 key nutrients are different from that original label.
Yeah, Engineer Kodakat, I think Mr. Pali was clearly said that it can be due to the labeling regulations. Because one country may ask for one country may regularize to display 1 set of nutrients. Some country may ask to display 1 set of nutrients. So because of that, I think due to this regulation, different regulations, there may be difference in the labeling. Am I correct, Mr. Pali?
Yeah, that's correct. But we cannot exclude that sometimes that some people say, for example, now some products we may say it's good for osteoporosis. Then they may highlight the calcium magnesium ratios, right? Provided the Sri Lankan requirement labeling regulation, but same for the marketing purposes also, they can highlight something more in their product. That is okay with the regulations. Regulation says okay, basic things has to be there. This fat, protein, basic 5 main nutrients has to be labeled in percentages. That's what I think Sri Lanka regulations is there. I can't remember. So this provided that if I say calcium, something more on calcium magnesium, that is maybe a promotion. That's correct.
Yeah.
That is allowed in Sri Lanka.
Depending on the promotional.
Sorry to disturb.
Yes,
I
Sudhu.
think we have to let go Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha because I think he has another meeting. He
Okay.
informed us in the earlier. So I think let's give him a vote of thanks. Especially I appreciate him on behalf of IESL sectional committee because it was a short notice. He came with a very short notice. So Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha, are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha. I think it was a quite
pleasure.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chanaka,
Gamini.
do you have say?
Yes, Muddu. Thank you very much, Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha. So it was a great help as well. So you have taken this discussion without any.
Anytime. Give me sufficient notice, then I can join always.
Yes,
It's a
definitely,
pleasure.
Mr. Rajapaksha. Yes. So we will. I think we can arrange some more sessions on this topic because this session and this topic is very interesting. So once again, I would like to thank on behalf of IESL and sectional committee. Many thanks to Mr. Gamini Rajapaksha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure indeed. Thanks and good night, everybody. Mr. Upali, see you later.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Gamini. We appreciate your presence. We will call you again. Thank you very much for your presence.
Anytime. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Let us continue with Mr. Upali. The labeling regulation he mentioned about how different milk products are mentioned in a different manner. This is, I think, quite interesting thing because we have all seen how it is in Sri Lanka. Maybe it is not the same in other countries. That's a totally different thing to be checked. And also one thing I want to like Mr. Upali mentioned, we have a different variety of cows in different sections of the country. Because of that, maybe our taste profile is better, even though there are a lot of other variations. Because we are thinking Sri Lankan milk is better, and then there are things like quality-wise, there are things like urea additions, and those things were less and less. But marketing-wise, when it comes to the things, these things were not highlighted. Maybe in Sri Lankan milk, maybe that is where that milk powder industry grow and the Sri Lankan milk, liquid milk industry perish earlier. Maybe that is one of the reason why, because our quality milk quality is not consistent. There are adulterations like mentioned. Maybe that's the reason. If we are going back to liquid milk, then once again, if these things are going to be happen, then it would be a bigger issue. I think, if especially let's say we are making a small unit in various districts or various locations. What do you think, Mr. Upali, how we could prevent that sort of situation from happening if we are to start this one once again?
Yeah, that's what I said. This is what generally I feel. But Sri Lanka, we don't have enough space and water and all these things to make dairy industry, huge farms. So then we have to live with small scale things. So even with that, we can supply the milk to our people. But specialized products, say for example, infant formulas, we can't make it here. But these things anyway we have to import. But Sri Lanka, for the adults foods, as adults foods, I think we can. The best thing is to move into the liquid.
Yeah, I think that question. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. No, there is one more question. I thought this is clarified. Okay, you can go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. one more thing, because when Mr. Upali mentioned we cannot make infant formulas in Sri Lanka, I think I happen to know that maybe I was not there, but earlier back in like earlier, they have made in some particular company, they made the infant formula. Is there any reason why they abandoned that, particularly because of our quality of the milk or something like that?
Yeah, quality of the milk and the economics, the both matters, right? The say for example, for the infant formula, but just I will tell you the chemistry behind it, right? Don't quote me for the some business kind of things, but say if you take the any infant formula, you can see vegetable fat mixes, either coconut oil, either palm oil, palmolene, corn oil, or something like that. It's there, infant formula. Whatever the best one would you see, you find it everywhere. It's there. But in Sri Lanka, we are talking about, okay, palm oil also. If you add palm oil into the milk powder, it's a huge issue in Sri Lanka. There are a lot of talks ongoing. But that's why I don't want to tap into this one. But what I'm saying is the chemistry behind it. Chemistry behind it, that is, cow's milk itself don't give the fatty acid formulas, fatty acid composition, which fits for the mother's fatty acid composition. That is the biggest challenge when we make milk powders for infant. Fatty acids are very essential for the infant growth. So then we have to find the required fatty acids. To get that fatty acids, we have to add some other fats. It may corn oil, it may coconut oil. Nowadays, everybody wants coconut oil. Now coconut oil more in this product. Look at that Mid Johnson and all these things. That ingredient list, it's there. Vegetable fat mix. So then, when we make that products in Sri Lanka, that getting suitable fats, the vegetable fats, mixers, all these are cost. And infant formulas you can't make in. There are special standards. Then these factories have to made for the special standards. Then special standards means then actually. What happened on the Nestle was actually they wanted to have infant formula different standard. Then they made different standard factories, high standard factories in a zone. That factory feeds for the zone. Zone means about 3 or 4 countries. So that is actually that matters the quality standards. Right? So that's what I think biggest multinationals now has gone to that level. That means infant formulas manufactures only designated factories which is made for the infant formulas. The standards are very high. So then when they are putting up a factory, then they look at the raw materials. Raw materials not only cow. You have to have very good vegetable fat sources, vitamin sources, mineral sources. Sri Lanka, everything has to be imported. Sri Lanka, the manufacturing infant formula is a dream, I would say. That's why the Nestle also left from that, because there is no business game. So that's why actually don't quote me that one. These are the decisions. This is centralized and doing it a good, highly standard factories and feed to the total zone. It's not only the Nestle, but all the other multinationals also done same. Because you can't maintain that standards. So did I answer your question?
Yes, I think somewhat extent it's saddened, but that is the ground truth. I mean, in Sri Lanka, the base, the chemicals and everything has to be imported, because especially the minerals and vitamins, we don't have vitamin manufacturing in Sri Lanka, so we have to import. Even if we did,
everything has to be imported.
Yes. So underlying truth is there are more to be done by the chemical engineering and the chemical and process engineering. These all come under chemical and process engineering. So as a sectional committee, I think that is how this when we are exploiting the dairy industry, we came in to discuss about the dairy industry. But when you go dig deep, the problems we can see in when we discuss about the big picture, we can see why we need to detailed out. Maybe it's going to the vitamins means Chanaka, I think it's going to the pharma industry,
Yes.
pharmaceutical industry.
It's all chemical and pharma industries.
Yes. So I think with Mr. Upali's words, the statement, we see huge potential as well as in the short run.
It's a two-sided coin, Sumudu. We see a big potential there for chemical engineers. Also, the industry needs chemical engineering knowledge. So it's a same coin. I see that we should be, there should be some gap. There is a gap always, but that gap should be minimized. I think that is something we can help it out.
That is actually, you have to look at the scale of economics. That means actually, nowadays, earlier small factories made infant formulas. Nowadays, with these new standards, new quality levels, and raw material problems, that huge raw material problems in milk, advanced countries like dairy farming, good factories, there is a huge problem of antibiotics in the milk. When it comes to infant formulas, it's a real critical thing. You can't have antibiotics. You can't have aflatoxins. You can't have because the levels are very low.
Yeah, this quality control is very challenging, as I understand.
Very challenging. So then it goes to a big mass places. It's most economical to produce in one factory to the whole zone. That means 3, 4, 5 countries. It's like that. Now it has already happened everywhere. So even in the New Zealand also, there are quite a very few factories make infant formulas. So it's like that. So we can't dream on these things, but we can do a lot, and adult foods in Sri Lanka.
Engineer Sumudu, there is Udesh raising hand from a long time.
Yeah.
So shall we ask Udesh to raise his question?
Yes.
Engineer Udesh?
Mainly my question is for Mr. Pali and open for others to comment as well. So if we think about bringing up these small farmers to medium level, let's say normally there are 3 to 6 cows per farmer, and if we can bring it up to 50, what are the challenges and how can we manage it?
Yes, actually, there are several institutions work on this in Sri Lanka. There are several reasons to what is we be lacking on that. I can share a little bit with you the models which India use and which Sri Lanka use. India, sometimes they say, okay, this particular company has to develop the dairy into that level, but then you will get the collection authority of that area to your business, provided minimum standard rate has to be paid to the farmers. So that is sometimes India follow. India had a lot of cooperative systems. Then they did a lot of dairy development. Nowadays in Sri Lanka, it is not like that. Everybody can grab the milk from everything. Then the manufacturers will not bother on developing the farmers. But most of the other countries, the manufacturer put some effort, manufacturer put some price on developing the farming industry. Now it is Sri Lanka, it's not like that. Everybody can, if I want to buy the now, all the bouncers running here and there throughout the country to collect the milk. Sri Lanka, that model has to be, constructive model has to be made to develop the farmers. That's one thing. The other second thing is, we must educate the farmers very well, because as the Damini rightly mentioned, Sri Lanka is grazing cattle because they are not in the sheds. They just on the, even in the farmers, they just at their fields. When the paddy fields there, then they put into the paddy fields. In the evening, only cows come to the house. But in the dairy industry, if you're going to get the good yield, cow has to be inside the shed. The cows has to be fed. Then water has to be, ample water has to be there. But I also travel together with, there are UN organizations currently working on developing that small scale farmers to get into the medium scale farmers. That means actually 3-4 cows to 10 or 15 cows. That's what their target. So I've been there, but with them, there are a lot of education to be done, because water is must. But today Sri Lankan farmers, they use water in the every day in the morning. Then the whole day cows, tied into the tree or something like that. They don't have water. In the evening only they get some water. So these practices has to be changed. People has to be educated. Water should be there every time to the cow to drink whenever he needs. Then only the milk yield comes out. There are a lot of things that the feeding also. Just grazing is not enough. A lot of vitamins and other nutrition has to be provided. So these small scale level things has to be educated. Now there are several organizations doing it. Because again, it's another industry. Another person can do something. Say, for example, cattle feed. Cattle feed can make some other some people can do it. India, it is there. Every city there are cattle feed shops. So they chop the grass and add some vitamins or whatever. There are the bags of cattle feed is there on the shop. The farmer can bring that cattle feed bags and feed the cow. But Sri Lanka, still, we haven't come to that level. But some institutions are working on it. Now some farmers are doing it, but it's not very significant. That's this kind of plan, this kind of approach, we have to develop in mass scale. To get at least 1 or 2 cows farmer to at least 10 or 15 cows farm. I don't know whether I answered that question.
So, Pali, actually, can you name these institutes? Because I am practically engaging with this kind of a project now.
I will give the contact. It is actually US. Just 1 minute. Let me see.
Udesh, meantime,
it is called IECS. Actually, IECS, International Executive Service Groups. 1 minute, I can't. It's called MOD project. MOD project means Market Oriented Dairy. Right? If you are interested, I will give you a contact number of Mr. Ashoka Bandara. I think, Priyanta, you have Ashoka Bandara's number.
Yeah, actually, yesterday I was trying to reach him. He was in today and tomorrow he has a training session for this dairy farmers and actually for the veterinarian and everyone, industry involvement. what I thought was, if once this session, this was like a very today session was actually because of the Sahasita's unavailability because due to the COVID, we have to do it in a very quick fashion. But because this dairy industry,
I think Sumudhu, you can give that contact number to Mr.
Definitely, I will get. Yeah,
Yes.
Udesh.
that
Udesh.
question, right?
I will share
Yes,
with
if
Udesh.
Sumudhu, you can coordinate and connect Mr. Engineer Udesh to Mr. Ashoka. That will be a great help because to your information, Mr. Pali, Engineer Udesh is a chemical and process engineering graduate. He's currently working for one of the leading textile plant in Pannala. But meantime, he's working with a lot of village-oriented small CSR project to help farmers to involved in fertilizer manufacturing. This is a compost manufacturing, and he is helping as a technology. He is helping them to grow their businesses, and he is transferring his knowledge as a technology partner. So that is a small brief about Udesh.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I think signals are a little bit weak here. Could you little bit brief me that?
Yes, Mr. Pali, Engineer Udesh is a chemical and process engineer and graduated from University of Moratu, and currently is working for one of the leading textile plant manufacturing organization in Pannala. In his village, he is helping farmers to produce compost. So he is transferring his knowledge to these farmers as a small CSR project, a small pilot project at the moment he is running. So I think that's why he needs this help. So
very good. I think you please provide that number to him.
Yeah.
Actually, it is a US government funding that project, because I was worked with them as a quality advisor to improve the quality among those. Actually, they are doing a lot of knowledge transfer on this.
Yes,
right?
I think I will share, Mr. Upali, the contact detail of Mr. Ashoka.
Contact details. I think Mr. Ashoka Bandara is very much interesting to work on that.
Question.
Right.
So this is regarding the yield of cow. So if we are talking about bringing new cows from other countries or breeding new cows to get the best yield, so what is your opinion on this? Like, I am not asking any contacts point of view. So whether it is happening in Sri Lanka or not?
It happened in several times. It happened in several times. Remember that that there were huge discussions also on that. We took some hybrids from Australia and tried. There are a lot of political discussions on that. But anyway, it was a good move. We have to little bit. However, that those experts has to work on it and improve the yield of the cows. But if you look at in Norelia side, there are hybrid cows are there. So then, however, I can't answer for that one because we have
Mr.
to look into
Upali,
that.
Mr. Upali, I think for that sort of things, Mr. Bandara could be the best person to answer, and also he have more insight.
Ashok Bandara, if you call Ashok Bandara, yes, because he was involved in on this, because he was the dairy development manager on that during our time. He has a lot of experience of breeding, and some people have different views also. They wanted to Sri Lankan systems to do it. There are a lot of debates on that. I have no much knowledge to comment on that, but one day if you can call Ashoka, he will be a good person.
Yeah, this particular matter about importing. Yeah, this particular matter about importing cows from Australia is a highly debatable and politicized one. I think even because I met few veterinarians, they have different opinions, and these things. That is why it is it's another subject that is which is a very important thing, because as mentioned earlier, our yield is low, so there has to be a way to improve it. So there has to be
something has to be done.
Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah,
otherwise
something
we will
has to be
be
done.
having.
Sumudhu, can you brief on positive and negative side of bringing hybrid cows from other countries?
Yeah,
Hybrid cows,
I
as far as my knowledge, I'm not. I have very poor knowledge on that animal side. The problems there is the diseases, and they are not geared to the climate conditions in Sri Lanka, right? So these kind of things are there, but that's why some people says, okay, we have to get the cows from breeds from similar climate condition countries like India and all these things. So there are things because the for my knowledge, what I heard is that what has happened on that Australian cows which is bring to Sri Lanka, they were not able to cope up the Sri Lankan conditions, and the farmers also not trained to handle those cows. That's a one big issue, because the farmers that was those were given to farmers. Farmers were not trained to do the farming. So those who were given to the big farms survived, but for the small scale farmers, they were not able to handle the cows. So that was another loss. So we have to analyze it, and we have to, my opinion is we can argue on this, but only thing what we have to do is we have to analyze what went wrong, and we have to do something. We have to learn from it, and we have to do correct things next day. Giving up and criticizing, I don't think it will be a good thing for us. Right? We have to move away, move into this direction. We have to improve the yield of the cows.
Yeah, without improving the yield of the cow, we cannot. I mean, there is a gap already, a gap of 60% importing. Even we are to matching up half of that, we have to improve the yield. There is no question, because 2.5 to maybe 25 liters, maybe, because we cannot reach in a one day 40 liters per day per cow. But in order to do that,
Sumudhu, if I ask, what are the difficulties or gaps we are facing to increase the yield? Is it only the breed, or any other things that infrastructure we need to modify or think of?
Because this, as Mr. Upal says, even I'm not expert on this matter. I'm generally speaking, one thing is the infrastructure, because this the cows coming from the other climatic conditions, we have to give them the right climatic conditions for them. And also, when a cow may produce milk, it's a highly energy intensive process. So that make a lot of heat out of the cow that has to be cooled down. So these things were not aware by our farmers, because our farmers used to our own hybrid application අර බටු හරක් කියලා කියන්නේ බටු හරක් ඒ වගේ versions වලට අපේ මේ වුණාම then they මේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට they haven't got any I mean sort of environmental control mechanisms at their sheds. Our local farmers, what happened when let's say these breeds were new breeds, Australian breeds, were given to the successful farmers. Even though they are small farmers, they were successful. When they given these animals, they were costing. There's a cost involving also, and on top of that, when these climatic conditions were not met, these cows get sick. When they get sick due to various reasons, the expenses, the expensiveness of the producing milk and maintaining the sheds, cow sheds, become very big, and then they could not sustain that one. And on top of that, this move has been objectified by various people, politicized, and that is how all these things end. I mean, not successful, but there are some cases, very successful cases, especially in the like the upcountry areas, not the newer area, but upcountry areas, because there are some very enthusiastic and highly learned people doing that same business. They were successful, whereas others, like traditional farmers without much of a knowledge, they failed at this. So there are such things, especially when it comes to cow sheds. If you go into, as Mr. Upali mentioned earlier, we don't have a farming industry. Even at a small scale, it's not an industry, because we can have a small scale industrial level farms, but we don't have that kind of facilities or that kind of level. That may be the reason. So I think the best person to explain about this and these things, we can invite Mr. Ashoka. Once again, he could clarify these issues, and because as correctly mentioned, we have to improve the yield. There is no other option. In order to improve the yield, one thing is as chemical engineers, we have to look into how to increase, because the cows and these things are, we can say it is the veterinarians and farmers, agricultural people. But when it comes to feeding, there's a huge feed mills. We can say feed mills. Again, feed mills are a big industry. Right now, I think very few places are there, like a big CIC feeds, and there are some few other companies, the local companies also doing that, but it is not sufficient. So we have to improve that and make the cow at the barn or shed. That has to be done in order to make more milk per day. So I hope that is my answer, Chanaka.
Yeah, thank you, Sumudro. There is, yes, there is another hand raised by Mr. Fayaz. So I think Udesh's question is clarified. Shall we move to
yes,
next question?
sir. Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Fayaz, you can speak.
Yeah, I'm asking another different questions. In Sri Lanka, we have most goat farms. Why can't we using goat milk from pasteurizations and distribute for among Sri Lankan? I think more than 5% of goat milk industry can fill by the total capacity of the market. And most this goat's milk give us proteins and other high energies also. So why can't we improve it, this one?
Sumudu, Mr. Upali, any comments on that? I think he is thinking about replacing goats, replacing cow milk with goat's milk into certain extent.
Yes, goat milk is, I as far as I understand that the goat milk yield is less than cow's milk. The one goat cannot give like cows, but of course, goat milk has high value addition, because for the children, as far as I remember, I can't exactly remember, but goat milk's fatty acid composition much closer to the mother's milk than to the cow's milk, right? You know that the goat milk is much better than cow's milk for the infants, and not for the infant, but children, right? So that's why that high value for the goat milk. Even goat milk powder is there in the market also. That's the cost is high. But again, it comes to the economics and quantities. But we can't, as at now we are facing a problem with the cows also. But if we are going to replace that space from lower yield substitute, then it'll not a good solution. That's what I generally feel. But it's better to use goat milk as goat milk. The goat milk, if you pasteurize and bottle it and sell it as goat milk, it has a high market value.
Yeah. Okay. I think, Mr. Fayaz, the question is clarified. Okay, Sumudhu, I think we have now already is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I am telling why I have 200 amount of goats available. I collect from milk from that one, and mostly I get the 30,000 to 40,000 from that income. From that income, it can be managed for that farming management. That's why I am telling this is if we promoted those things, the farmers can be more energized and get more productivity, and local industries also will be developed in futures. And it will be built to SMEs, small and medium enterprises, also give high growth land. That is my concept here.
Yeah,
So
I think Mr. Fayaz, as Mr. Upali said, so goat milk, if you market it as the goat milk separately, as you also mentioned, that it will, it will capture set of some subset of the cow milk market as well. So that will create a new market for goat milk, as well as it will reduce the constraint or the pressure on the cow milk supply. So it's I think, right way to right move to look forward. But only constraint, as Mr. Upali said, the cow milk compared to cow, the goat's yield is less. So that part will, because of that concern, that will not give you an answer for that, whatever the problems we are facing currently, the lack of supply. So that part I don't think with moving to goat's milk it will resolve. But as you said correctly, it will create a new market and it will create new opportunities for the farmers.
Yeah, and I think it's a good business opportunity for small and medium scale farmers. Maybe if you have a cattle shed and then you have because cattle eat some foods, whereas goats, they don't care that much about the quality. So in between they can have a mix up, and they could have because small scale farming all about mixing the things and having a more sustainable model. In that sense, the goat farming, if we start as the entrepreneurship business, that could have a very good opportunity that also we can discuss again in detail later. I think Chanaka, we are reach almost 2 hour time limit. It's I think no one noticed that.
Yeah, that discussion was so great and so informative. So I didn't want to disturb, because we originally planned for a 1 hour discussion and 30 minutes, 1 hour presentation and 30 minutes discussion. But with the enthusiasm and the resourcefulness of our panel members, so the time I think passed very fast. So we didn't feel that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sumudhu, if you can make a final comments and the remarks, then I think we can conclude.
Yeah, I think today we did with the Mr. Gamini Rajapaksa and especially with the Mr. Upali. They both came with a very short notice, and I'm very much appreciated, and I'm very much thankful for both of them. And I know both of these gentlemen are very busy persons, and their time is much more valuable, and sharing their knowledge and experiences with us at a very short notice. I'm very much thankful, and I hope our ISL chemical sectional committee engineers and everyone could get the best use out of that. And with that, I give Chanaka to closing remarks.
Yes, I think we have our president, Engineer Neil Wickramasinghe. So can you have the final thoughts?
Very well. This discussion was very important and people were very enthusiastic over this. And we can, if required, do another one later on. And this gave very good information, especially Mr. Opali and Mr. Gamini Rajapaksa. as experienced people, their explanation and information were very important. So thanking them again. So I thank you all for participating in this, and you all can again come back with more information, and we'll try to do something for the betterment of this dairy sector closely related to chemical engineering. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Engineer. Thank you very much. Again, one more thank goes to Engineer Somudu for coordinating within a very short period. And once more, I would like to thank Engineer Mr. Upali and Engineer Rajapaksha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure.